outside. For all these three reasons, it is important to review the current fragmented distribution of the territory. Maybe one approach would have been enhanced collaboration between local governments, but in the Albanian case you have chosen the way of mergers. And that is certainly a very powerful approach. But when we merge territories together, the next question is who should belong to whom should work together with who should go with whom. And here comes the principle of the functionality. I think I don't have to elaborate this too much. And the second slide, right? Yeah, okay. What is functionality? What is a functional area? This has been explained very much. As you know, functionality goes beyond historic boundaries of the existing local governments, because activities, socio-economic activities such as going to work or going for shopping, then you go maybe for a rural commune to a more urban commune, you commute from one place to the other place. Maybe for leisure you go from urban areas to remote areas, if you want to go to the nature. So within these functional areas there's a lot of interaction. And when we draw new maps, we should take account of these interactions. And function area boundaries should be put in line with this, with the new boundaries of the local governments. This principle is used not only in Albania, it was used before, for instance, in my country, in Switzerland, it's still used there, in Germany, in Ireland, in Spain, and it is very much promoted by the OECD and by the European Union. However, the OECD and the European Union uses this principle more for urban areas, but in Albania we have proved that it can be very well used also for rural areas. Now let's go to the functional area program. Where does the idea come from? The idea behind is that functional areas have a potential, a development potential, but this potential does not materialize automatically. Something has to be done, and there are 4 preconditions that this potential materializes. First, policy measures are needed to make it happen. Policy measures can be translated into projects, so projects must be elaborated. And this project should have, that's the second issue, an area-wide approach. Not only for small areas, but an area-wide approach is important. If we consider, for instance, marketing for these areas, then it is obvious that if we put the energy together, if we bundle it, it has a huger impact than if it's done in a very scattered way. Next issue is that integrated policy approach is used. This approach should go beyond single function approaches. So it's not enough to have, for instance, a wage policy or a policy for public transportation or maybe for culture in the area. It must be combined, and then coming from that, the impact will be bigger. In the morning we have heard the formula that 1 + 1, if we put the energy together, then we will have 1 + 1 equals 3, not only 2. But what is also needed is that bodies are created for joint decision making. In the case of horizontal collaboration, this is more complicated. Now you have chosen the approach of mergers, then you have this body. This is the new local government, the bigger local government. They have their legitimacy now to make policy for the entire territory and also to implement policies in this bigger territory. Where did the idea come from for this functional area program? I think it started in my country, in Switzerland, in 2013. We had a delegation coming to Switzerland, and then we were talking, for instance, about these so-called agglomeration programs. And this, I think, this became kind of a role model. What is an agglomeration in Switzerland? It's an urban, it's a functional area in the urban environment. In Switzerland, these urban environments very often are also fragmented. We have maybe a center town, and then around that we have a number of municipalities, but they all belong together. Traditionally, in these urban areas, in these agglomerations, we had, and we still have, collaboration, horizontal collaboration, but very often it was only single function oriented. Then in 2002, national government came to the opinion that this is not enough. More integrated approach is needed, and for that reason they created this notion of agglomeration program. What is it? They wanted to stimulate this more integrated policy approach in these urban areas, and for that purpose they promised that they will come with matching grants, so with more money for development in these urban areas, provided 3 conditions are met. The first condition is an integrated agglomeration-wide development strategy must be elaborated. Second precondition, projects must be identified, costed, a feasibility check for this project had to be done, and this project, of course, they must be closely related to this strategy. And the third precondition was that a legitimate decision-making body is elaborated. This did not exist. We had the central town, and then we have a number of municipalities sitting around. So we needed a decision-making body and a body that is entitled to implement this project. So I think this idea inspired a little bit DLTP and DLTP partners to start this functional area program idea. So what is the difference between a functional area program and the traditional strategic development plan? When we consider the territory, of course, the strategic development plan is covering the existing LGUs, whereas the functional area program covers the territory of the functional area. The scope of a functional area program is narrower than for the strategic development plan. The strategic development plan covers all functions of local government, whereas the functional area program is focused on 2 areas, on 2 dimensions. First one is economic development of the locality, and the second one is the service delivery. Why? Because we were of the opinion that this will be the core and the principal and the most urgent issue when local governments come together, when small local governments come together, and in case of merger, when new local governments are going to be built. They will face 2 challenges, 2 core challenges. The first one is guarantee that services are delivered area-wide and of good quality. And the second one is that this territory now tries to use its full economic potential. The time horizon for a functional area program is shorter. It's more medium-term oriented. It is thought for the transition period. We are of the opinion that this will last maybe for 4 years, whereas a strategic development plan usually has a time horizon of approximately 10 years, so it's more long-term oriented. If we consider the approach, the functional area program had to be elaborated in a relatively short time. We used half a year. So this is very short, and for that reason, it was more expert-based, maybe a little bit less participatory processes were there, fora were established, and things were discussed with these people in the fora, but it was less participative compared with the elaboration of a strategic development plan. Shall we go to the next one? Now, the implementation, I think we should now start about, because this, at least in the northern Albania and this 8 legal local governments, we have now these functional area programs. They do not yet exist in the remaining territory, but at least in these territories they exist. But now we should think about how to implement them. Traditionally, we can call that traditionally because it's already a kind of a tradition. The LDB has developed this so-called S.Pffaefli approach, meaning that the strategic development plan, SDP, is going to be implemented through the medium-term budget program. And this is facilitated with the E, which means that there is a financial planning tool which facilitates the financial plan part of the medium-term budget. But is it possible to use this approach also for the functional area program? What is characteristic for the SDP-MTBP approach is that the strategic plans are adopted already by the council, and then it's implemented through the MTBP. MTBP has a 3-year perspective, and there is a program structure, with indicators and with annual targets. And then the financial plan, as I said, it is facilitated through the financial planning tool. So how will the situation be in fall 2015, so in this year? Then the new local governments will be operational. And they will have this functional area program as a document